All right, everybody, welcome to how serious adult drummers are discovering the fastest, most authentic way to become truly diverse, in-demand musicians. They're able to play the styles they've always wanted to play with confidence, freedom, feel, and authenticity, regardless of age or current limitations. And they're making a transformation in their playing by mastering what I call the 4 food groups of drumming. And what are the 4 food groups of drumming? Everything you need to become a complete musician at the drums. So I group them in Afro-Caribbean, South American, jazz, and rock, funk, and fusion, and everything with a backbeat. So quick check so you know you're in the right place. This is for motivated adult drummers, usually 25 and up. You might be gigging or a serious weekend player. Maybe you've been playing for decades, but you know there's another level you haven't unlocked yet. And you're tired of guessing what to practice and tired of feeling like certain styles, Brazilian, Afro-Cuban, jazz, are just out of reach. You don't want more random licks. You want a clear path. So here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you the 4 food groups I've used as a Grammy and Latin Grammy-winning drummer and Berklee professor for over 25 years to break down complex rhythms into something you could actually absorb, internalize, and use creatively in your playing. And here's a little chart of the 4 food groups of drumming that I came up with. So Afro-Caribbean styles give you the tradition of the clave and connection to West African culture and the knowledge of how percussion works together as a section. And these rhythms are at the root of most of what we play today. South American rhythms are also based on African rhythms for the most part, but developed over hundreds of years in South America, fusing with European harmony, influences of jazz, rock, and funk, and folk music. And in many South American styles, you can hear a type of swing that cannot be notated. Of course, jazz is at the very root of all the American styles we play today. The history of the drum set is rooted in jazz, and the concept of jazz is to develop the touch, the adaptation of percussion sounds on the multiple percussion setup, as Max Roach would say, and to have a musical conversation and a deep swing above all, to move people. And funk, rock, and fusion, along with R&B and blues and everything else, is the byproduct of all these roots influences. It's everything with a backbeat, which has the pocket, the power, and the sound to really move people. So this is going to be our theme today. And by the end of this presentation, you're going to know how the 4 food groups of drumming will allow you to make serious progress and get rid of any deficiencies in your drumming. So you may be thinking, well, I'm a rock drummer, or I'm a metal drummer, or whatever. Why should I care about Afro-Cuban, Brazilian rhythms and jazz? Well, John Bonham played samba on Foolin' in the Rain. Stuart Copeland played plenty of reggae with the Police. Mitch Mitchell played swing on a lot of Jimi Hendrix tracks and even Afro-Cuban 6/8 in the tune Beginnings. Charlie Watts had his own jazz orchestra. John Densmore played bossa grooves with the Doors. And the drummer on one of the biggest rock hits of all time, Steve Smith, is a jazz player. So knowing that, don't you think even if you're a rock drummer, it would make you a better rock drummer to know all these different styles? As a matter of fact, I just did a gig yesterday at Berklee Performance Center, and it was for Berklee Online, the Berklee Online program called Berklee On Site. It was a physical gathering of everyone in that program. And we played everything from Ray Charles to Bonnie Raitt. And I was kind of thinking about the 4 food groups in my head and realizing that we hit pretty much all of them because a lot of Ray Charles stuff was very Latin influenced. It was almost like a New Orleans version of Afro-Cuban rhythms. We also played a reggae version of a pop song that Bonnie Raitt had recorded, and some straight up funk and rock. And it was a blast. And I realized, yeah, you know, any drummer worth their salt should really know these rhythms. And just so you know, this path has gotten people to where they want to go. Here's my student, Eric. He's one of the best players in New York. And he was a great player to begin with, but he was missing out on work because he didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle together. So once I got him to work on the 4 food groups of drumming, and this is at Berklee, his playing changed and he began getting and crushing lots of gigs. eventually subbing for me with Paquito de Rivera and playing with Esperanza Spalding and Julian Lodge, some great jazz players there. Here's Eric reflecting on that.
But I lacked the knowledge and the experience and the musical know-how to listen to different styles of drumming and different traditions of drumming and figure out just exactly what was going on. It was through studying with Mark that I learned how to listen to different styles of music and listen for the essential elements of vocabulary and of language that I needed to learn and apply to the drums in order to play this kind of stuff in real musical situations.
And that he surely did, because in this next clip you'll see him playing an Argentinian style rhythm called chacarera with Paquito himself. He's playing the bombo legüero, Argentinian bass drum. See how that rhythm sounds like it's in 3/4, but it sounds like it's in 6/8, and it also sounds like it's in 2/4. Isn't that wild? How could you notate that? So here's Nikki, my former student, now playing with Snarky Puppy in the Nth Degree. She's one of the best on the scene. And she had a true gift, but she was only focused on funk and R&B when she came to me. After I worked with her to incorporate the other food groups into her playing, she got the gig with Beyonce, of course, and later Snarky Puppy, and is also now crushing it with her own band, the Nth Power. And her drumming draws from all the 4 food groups, South American, Afro-Cuban, funk, and rock styles. She really surprised me when I saw her at PASIC. And when we talked, she said, "I'm a byproduct of you." I'm like, wow, that's a huge compliment. Here's Alejandro, great jazz player, but he felt locked out of certain musical situations and needed help. He had a pile of books, but couldn't make the connection to bring those grooves to life. And once I shared the 4 food groups with him, he said, "Mark has helped me unlock ways to play different styles without losing the roots and aesthetics. It's really helped me grow as a professional musician." And now he's crushing it with folks like Jorge Drexler, Michael McDonald, Chucho Valdez, and he's a Mapex artist doing a lot of educational work as well. Here's my student Kane. He was struggling with making charts sound authentic. He could read, but it just didn't feel right when he played with the band. He practiced for many hours, but was still feeling frustrated. And after I shared this 4 food groups concept with him, he said, "Mark was able to help me grow not only as a musician, but as a session player." And here's a clip of him playing with Jesus Molina. He also went on to play with Kanye West and George Benson. And there they go. So you don't have to be a professional drummer to get results like this. Like my student Mark, he's a 58-year-old software engineer, and he told me he was struggling with creative ways to enhance a song. He's not doing gigs like that last clip you saw. He'd like to be able to solo like that, and someday it's going to happen. But here he is, before and after one Afro-Caribbean lesson with only 3 weeks in the program that I'm teaching. Check this out.
Could I do it now? Probably not.
You found the pocket, and that's a beautiful thing. All right, so here's who this is for. This is for people who are kind of suffering from a scattered practice. They can't really figure out what to concentrate on. Stylistic limitations. Maybe they don't know all those different styles we're talking about, and they might miss out on work or opportunities because of that. A weak feel and phrasing. So that could be a big thing that could get you from, that could keep you from playing with other people. A lack of authenticity. Now that's not the end of the world if you don't sound totally authentic, but it certainly helps to sound authentic. So if you want to improve what you can play, just make it sound deeper. This is for you. And information overload, we all suffer from that. There's so much out there. Musical insecurity. I talk to a lot of people that don't want to solo, for example, or they feel put on the spot. They feel nervous playing in front of crowds. Plateaued growth, that happens quite a bit. You know, you might have some things you practice, but you just don't really see the needle moving forward. And that's usually because of no clear roadmap. And a fear of never reaching your true potential. That's pretty sad when someone feels like that. Now here's who this is not for. Somebody who wants shortcuts, somebody who refuses to leave their comfort zone, who only cares about chops and speed. Chops and speed are important, of course, but if that's the only focus, you're going to be a solo artist. And if you aren't willing to practice consistently, you won't get the kind of results you want. So if you think random YouTube videos are enough, maybe this is not for you. And if you want just entertainment instead of transformation, go watch TV. If you're not serious about becoming a versatile musician, you're forced to stay in your own lane, just one lane, for pretty much your whole career. And that's no fun. And you're comfortable staying exactly where you are. So if you don't want to progress, you can just turn this off. No hard feelings. We'll see you on the next one. All right. Here's what we'll cover. Secret number 1, why most drummers sound one-dimensional and what to do about it. Secret number 2, how to rewire your brain to gain maximum confidence in your performance. And secret number 3, how to organize your practice time, how to become the drummer you want to be while living the rest of your life. Okay, so here's my deal for you, and I want to get a little response to this. So I'll give you the best presentation on drumming I can give you that you've ever seen. And if I do that, all I ask is that you stick around and really pay attention, because I'm going to be giving you an offer to people who want more help with some mentorship. Now, however, if I don't do good on my first promise to give you the best presentation you've ever seen about this, then please don't let me invite people for more mentorship. Do we have a deal? Put a 5 in the chat. All right. We got some 5s here. Cool. All right. So you guys are really serious. That's what that tells me. So that's good. That's a good thing. Okay. So I want to show you a little bit about my background so you can take this seriously. And I want to share this with all of you so you'll understand how important the 4 food groups are, because if those weren't in my life, well, I would starve for one thing, but I don't think any of this would have been possible. So what am I talking about? I've been featured on 2 Grammy Award winning records, 4 Latin Grammy Award winning records, and 9 Grammy or Latin Grammy nominated records, including my own Grammy nominated composition, Deep Six. Been featured on a Latin jazz documentary film with Paquito de Rivera called Calle 54, and concert tours with some amazing musicians. So lower left-hand corner, that's Arturo Sandoval's band. Right above that, that's Oregon. At the top middle, that's Randy Brecker Quartet. We toured Japan together. To the right, that's Paquito de Rivera. Down there on the right is Rob Schneider. And then in the center, lower center, is Michel Camilo. So I've worked with all those people. And recently at PASIC last year, I received the Legacy Award from Yamaha. And there's Dave Weckl standing to my right, who has been a huge inspiration, and as well as all those other drummers right there. I've been a professor at Berklee since 2001, Berklee Online faculty since 2011, jazz faculty at New England since 2021, and I used to teach at Drummers Collective when that still existed. So how is this all possible? I was an average kid who liked music, like you. I just wanted to play. Eventually, I became a professional musician right out of high school. I got hired to play all kinds of music and was challenged to show up and make it happen. And I was working live and recording like crazy. Suddenly, I was hit with a new level of challenge. I got the gig with Paquito de Rivera, the mega Grammy Award-winning NEA jazz master, originally from Cuba. And he's been playing concerts since he was 6 years old, and he's just crushing it. Overnight, I was playing with giants of Afro-Latin jazz like Dizzy Gillespie, Arturo Sandoval, Danilo Perez, and Giovanni Hidalgo. It was a total immersion into the jazz and Afro-Latin jazz world. And I even met Michel Camilo backstage, and he said, yeah, why don't you move to New York and we'll do some playing, which I later did. With Paquito, I learned to expect the unexpected. I had to be able to adapt to a whole new set of Latin American grooves and song styles, as well as improvise, swing hard, play funky, solo, and read anything on the spot. I was basically thrown into the fire. And he would call me for band stuff, orchestra stuff, all kinds of things, record dates. It was crazy. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt you weren't ready? Yeah, that was me. And I see in the chat, Lamar said, I discovered you with the Caribbean Jazz Project. Big fan. Yeah, that was a great gig. That was like a little school. Talk about 4 food groups. We had a lot of spice in that group. So in order to survive the gig and really be able to hang and do those gigs, including the Caribbean Jazz Project, I had to figure out how to understand the rhythms that were being thrown at me. And I had to figure out how to listen, break down things, and internalize these rhythms in the music. And I had to figure out how to transfer these rhythms to the drum set and make it sound like I'd been playing it for years, sometimes even the same day. It was tough. With Paquito, we were touring around. I had no idea there was music from Martinique, Venezuela. I had no idea it even existed. But there we were. We were playing all over the place. We were playing different styles from Cuba, Venezuela, Argentina, Puerto Rico, Brazil, Uruguay, Peru, and so many other places. And sometimes we performed those styles the same day I learned them. So here's the diagram of the 4 food groups. And I realized that to be a well-rounded musician, I needed to know a lot more than what I was used to listening to. I was deficient in a couple of areas at least, and I had to get outside my comfort zone to learn them. I discovered that the rhythms and music I was being asked to play on gigs and sessions fell into these 4 categories, which I called the 4 food groups of drumming. And once I realized that I need help in these areas, I discovered ways to learn them faster. As I worked on each style, I discovered that I needed to know, first of all, where it's from and what is the context. Is it more of a jazz type of music? Is it more folk music? What does it sound like? What instruments are playing? I had to learn how to listen, and I had to learn how to identify different instruments in the music. And a large part of that listening was really getting a sense of what the feel is. So the feel consists of the pulse and the subdivision. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Also the phrasing, all the way down from the bass drum to the top line, the melody. Also the orchestration, how it's voiced on the drums and how that reflects the composition. And lastly, the vocabulary, how to improvise on it. And I sometimes refer to this as the 5 points. So origin, feel, phrasing, orchestration, and vocabulary. Those are really, really important. And here's a great example of someone who knows those 4 worlds and those 5 points. That's one of my top students, Gen. he studied with me remotely from Japan, and he was frustrated because he wasn't getting the work he wanted. After we worked together online, he said, I learned a lot studying remotely with Mark, and now I get called from many different artists to play a lot of different styles, such as jazz, funk, pop, rock, as well as music from Cuba, Brazil, Argentina, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, and Colombia. And he's truly a chameleon, and he's stealing all my gigs. But, I need him to be able to play any of my gigs because I need to rely on people who can jump in just in case. And he's one I can recommend to anybody. In fact, the results that I and my students got were so profound that they started telling me they were crushing their gigs. So eventually more and more people began asking me how to level up in their drum set playing. And I figured out how to give students a way to access any style in a short amount of time. And I developed this over 25 years at Berklee. So it all came back to those four worlds: Afro-Caribbean, South American jazz, and funk fusion. And in a moment, I'm going to show three very important secrets that I discovered for myself that will get you real results. So my first step to developing this method was to imagine what I needed to do to become the drummer I wanted to be. So imagine what your life will be when you can play authentically in any style. Your coordination allows you to be creative. You have a great sound and feel. You can read and interpret any chart on the spot, and that goes over any style. You're comfortable with the solo vocabulary for any style. Your practice is organized, and you have total confidence and no fear on stage. All right, you ready to get into it? Let's type a 10 in the chat if you guys are ready to do this. Just making sure everybody's here. Yeah. All right. And if you guys stay to the end, I've got a little gift for you. I'll let you know about that at the end. All right. Secret number one, why most drummers sound one-dimensional and what to do about it. Okay, so let's talk about how drummers sound. Why is it that one drummer can play a groove and it sounds like it comes from a book, and another drummer can play the same groove but brings it to life, makes people want to move? We all know it's the feeling. Hey, Kathy in San Diego, thanks for joining us. So if you look at some of the old ways drumming was taught, there's a lot of teaching on a surface level. And I think the main point of it was not really checking out the music for some teachers, the way some teachers taught. The good ones taught from a musical standpoint. But here's generic patterns taught from books. So if you learn that way, the result is that the feel is out of context. There's no variations and no reference to the music. It's just a pattern, which for maybe a DJ would sound good. Here's another old way and new way, YouTube videos. Now, I have mixed feelings about YouTube videos. Sometimes I check YouTube videos for certain things, and it's really cool. But you have to really check out the music. If you're going into a certain style, you really have to check out the music to make sure you're doing it right. And if you just check out one or two surface things, it's sort of iffy. So you really have to be careful with that. If somebody teaches you a groove with no accents or dynamics, run the other way, because the result is the groove is going to sound very flat and uninspiring. Dynamics are the difference between pro level and just good. So you can remember that. Take that to the bank. Here's another way with no focus on vocabulary, just a pattern, or generic solos over a certain groove. If you don't really examine the specific vocabulary for each style, it's going to sound very generic. So how do we do it? Remember when I said earlier I had to figure out how to survive the gig with Paquito de Rivera? I looked at all the ways people learn grooves, and I tried pretty much all of them. And I realized that these 4 food groups of drumming was a new path of learning for me, and I found out later that it was something that I could teach, because it was a new method that taught me how to be the most versatile drummer I could possibly be, and it paid off. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at more closely at each food group, so to speak. So I'm actually going to I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you're going to see me on the drums. And let's get into it deeply. All right, so we'll start with Afro-Caribbean feels. Now, let me ask you something. Is there a particular Afro-Caribbean feel that you're having problems with? Just put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll demonstrate a couple of different things. But I want to help you guys out as much as I possibly can. So let's look at what Afro-Caribbean rhythms consist of. So we can do this by country. Okay, cool. Learning Latin and Afro-Caribbean, excellent. So we've got Cuba, we've got Puerto Rico, which has different rhythms and some similar rhythms. And then we've got French-speaking, we've got Dominican Republic. We've got French-speaking islands, Martinique and Guadeloupe and Haiti, rhythms from there. We also have English-speaking islands like Jamaica and Trinidad. So let's take those areas. I know there are more, but we'll take those areas. So we've got polyrhythms, mostly from a taiko's perspective. Okay, that sounds really cool. 12/8 with Afro-Cuban. Okay, that's very good. So let's look at Afro-Cuban rhythms, and we'll examine how the clave figures into this. And I want to make the point that all these food groups help one another. So the touch of jazz helps everything else, the dynamics, getting to that pro level. The power and pocket of rock and funk really helps the Afro-Cuban, because then you can really settle into the pocket. The clave concept can be used to create really cool funk grooves, as I'll demonstrate in a minute. And South American rhythms, there's so many different ways to play those. You can sound like a battery of percussionists on one drum set, and it's a beautiful thing. So, with that, having said that, let's get into Afro-Cuban rhythms. So one of the things I teach about Afro-Cuban rhythms is that the right hand part is one of the most important things you can learn. And the right hand part, if you're right-handed that is, the right hand parts consist of cascada, or a shell pattern, and the function of that, it gives space to whatever's going on in the music. So if somebody's singing lyrics, you probably don't want to be on a cowbell. And you probably don't want to be hitting really hard. So cascada is a softer part, and it gives sonic space to what's going on in the music. Now, when the music builds up, and there's a chorus, or there's a more aggressive section with horn hits, or maybe a solo, trumpet solo, that's where the bells come in. And that's why it's important to know how to play the cowbell as well. So what I'm going to demonstrate is a couple of really important right-hand patterns, 3 patterns, as a matter of fact, that will really serve you well in Afro-Cuban music. So first, we have to look at the concept of the clave. So clave, as you know, so it's like a question and an answer. It's like a tension, release. Now, sometimes the music can start on the second part of it. Even though those 3 hits and the 2 hits, that's the original clave pattern. Sometimes the music starts there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you these 3 patterns starting on the 2-hit side of the clave. So we call that 2-3 clave. We call that clave direction. So the music will start 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So the cascada rhythm is originally played on the side of the timbale set with a timbale stick, which is very thin and has no tip. So it sounds like tick 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 tick. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to play that in a typical Afro-Cuban way, and then I'm going to show you how to adapt it to a funk pattern, which is really a lot of fun. Okay, here we go. Now what I'm going to do, it's usually played on a timbale shell, as I said. Sometimes it's played on the floor tom shell, but this one is second floor tom and it's really far. You're not going to see me play it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it on this hat right here, this X hat. Okay? So I'm going to count you in. I'm going to play the clave a few times in the reverse of what it usually is. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1. So that's a really important part. Now, the bass and the bass drum play a very similar part. And what they do is anticipate on 4. So in other words, they play 4 and then it ties over to beat 1. So you don't actually play beat 1. So it sounds like this. They play the and 2 and beat 4. So 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Boom, boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now this part fits in as if you're taking the role of the timbale player. And if there's a conga player, it sounds great. If there's no other percussionist, you have the option of playing a left-hand part that imitates the sound of a conga. So I'm talking about this. All right, so let's take our cascada pattern and let's adapt it to a funk groove. And this is something I developed working with various people, just trying to get a feeling of funkiness in it and altering things. So it's the recipe of Afro-Cuban, but in a funk context. And I use this a lot in a class that I teach at Berklee called Funkifying the Clave. It's with Lincoln Goines, the bass player. It's based on his old book from the 90s that he wrote with Rabi Amin, the great drummer from New York. So I've got the cascada here, and I'm going to put a backbeat in different places, and you're going to see the effect of it. Here we go. Having a little fun there. So you see how the traditional patterns can be adapted to funk? Pretty cool, right? All right. So the other two right-hand patterns that are really important, and I'm just going to not spend too much time on this, but just to give you an idea, and you can watch this after the fact, there'll be a replay. One is from the bongo player. I see the bell across the room and I forgot to bring it over here, but I have it right here. So basically, in a typical Afro-Cuban context, when someone plays a handheld cowbell, they're playing what's called the campana. And what that does, the function of that is to drive the band. It's kind of like the backbeat of that type of music in a bell. And I've seen the great bongo player who picks up the bell and plays it. It was someone who just passed away recently, Johnny Dandy Rodriguez. He drove the band. As a matter of fact, he drove the whole Tito Puente Orchestra with one cowbell, and it was the most amazing thing to see. And the pattern that he played was on the mouth of the bell, where it's open, and then the other end of the bell, kind of on the neck of the bell. So you got these two different sounds. You got this, and then you got the other end of the bell by where it's mounted. It's kind of a ping kind of sound. So in 2/3 clave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, the pattern would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that could be adapted to a lot of different things. Like I can think of a couple of tunes by the rock band Santana that would work really well. But you know, if you wanted to do it in a jazz context, I'll put it in a rock context first. So I'll slow it down a little bit. 1, 2. So it gives it a little different edge, you know, rather than just playing the hat or bell. It gives it something really unique. And that's how I see the food groups working together. Now, the other pattern, Afro-Cuban pattern that you would hear at the same time as this one is played by the timbale player. And that is a different setup. Instead of playing a handheld bell held upside down like this with the mouth on the top, it's set up on the timbales sideways. So, and it's played right on top with that thin timbale stick. So to get that sound, I usually play with the butt end of the stick right in the center of the bell. And it's easy to learn this pattern in 2/3 clave because it hits a downbeat. So sounds like, oh, and there's no two sounds. It's just one sound basically. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Da 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 da. Okay, so I'll play it a little bit, then I'll add the clave, I'll add the rest of the kit. Here we go. Now, it could be much faster. It could be about that tempo. Either way. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adapt this to more of a jazz setting. You might be playing a standard tune that goes from Afro-Cuban to swing. So let's check that out. Let's say, I don't know if you guys know the tune, The Night Has 1,000 Eyes. Then it goes to 4/4 swing. So I'm going to adapt this pattern that you just heard. So 1, 2. So that's really useful to be able to play the traditional Afro-Cuban thing and bring it to either funk, rock, or jazz. See how that works? Are you digging this? Let me know in the chat. You get something out of this? Let's hear from you guys. The tune was The Night Has a Thousand Eyes, John Coltrane. All right, good. Glad you guys are into it. Great. Okay, so let's go to a different part of the Afro-Caribbean food group here and do something a little bit different. Reggae is pretty popular, but I want to concentrate a little more on something that's maybe less known in the States, but it's very important. And that is Calypso. Now, if you've ever heard a steel band with steel pans, steel orchestra, a lot of the rhythms that are played with that are either Calypso or Soca. So I want to demonstrate a little bit of each, but I also want to show you another French Caribbean rhythm I learned from Andy Narell from Caribbean Jazz Project. So, basic Calypso. Now, one of the most important things about Calypso is this rhythm called the tresillo. You hear this in pop music all the time. Also, something called the cinquillo. Tresillo is like tres, so 3 hits. Cinquillo is cinco, 5 hits. So both of those types of phrases are in the mix. So here's a typical Calypso, old school Calypso pattern. And I'll use those, that cinquillo in the fills that I play. Now, did you notice that I was swinging those figures? It wasn't straight like dot, 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 dot. It was like dot, 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 dot. It was almost like a straight up 5. So that comes from listening and having heard steel band music for many, many years and playing it with Andy Narell. That didn't hurt either. All right. Now, a lot of the contemporary pop music of today seems to have a Caribbean influence that has that tresillo, ta, 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 ta. And one of the most popular grooves is reggaeton, but it seems like to me that it's nothing new because I heard soca early on and it's pretty much the same pattern. So let's check out a little soca. Soca, the difference between Calypso and soca is that in Calypso, what you just heard, the bass player is playing half notes against that anticipated drum part. But in soca, it's usually a lot faster and the bass part is busier. And the drum part on the bass drum is just playing 4 on the floor. So check this out. So I was referencing a song called The Hammer by David Rudder, who I got to work with. He's from Trinidad. He lives in Canada. Great tune. Yeah, nothing new under the sun, right? Pretty cool. So another French Caribbean groove that I mentioned that I learned from Andy Narell. There's a great drummer named Jean-Philippe Fonfont. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's from Martinique and he lives in Paris, but he's like a Gretsch guy. And I was really inspired by his playing, and I got to sub for him in a band, and also we played on the same Andy Narell record together called Fire in the Engine Room. Check that out. There's 3 drummers on that record. So this is called begin. So it uses that cinquillo rhythm that I played for the fills, but it's on the snare. And there's an interlocking bass drum and floor tom pattern. And the idea is to get the sound, the floor tom to sound like the bass drum. So here we go. Now, when I first learned this rhythm, I was playing a set like this with Caribbean Jazz Project, and I didn't know to cross over. That was a traditional thing. That came from playing it on the bass drum. They used to play that floor tom part on the bass drum. But I learned it open-handed, so that's okay. You can play it open-handed if you want. So you have more responsibility for the left hand to play the cinquillo. Sounds like this. So, you know, it's one thing I'm thinking about this as I'm doing this. You guys haven't heard the music yet. So that's important. Go look up Begin music from Martinique, and then you'll get a picture of what I'm going for. Because if you just hear it on the drums, it sounds cool on its own, but to hear it in the context, it's even better. Okay, so that's a little taste of the Afro-Caribbean. Now, South American, in these webinars, I usually demonstrate samba. Now, I can totally do that. One of the things about samba is that it traditionally has a lot of different instruments involved in the percussion, and we adapt them to the drum set, including surdo, the big bass drum, snare drum, shaker, tambourine. And what we do if we're playing it on the drums by ourselves, we play various percussion patterns, and we vary them and open them up so that we can improvise a little bit. So one of the biggest things that I see a lot of American drummers doing when they try to play samba, they don't really know the phrasing of the instruments that are being played by the percussionists. And so it kind of sounds very generic. So I'm talking about something like this. It's nothing wrong with that, but it just sounds a little lifeless to me. So where this part is coming from, this cross stick part, is an instrument called the tambourine. Tak 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 tak. I know I have one around here somewhere. I just forgot to put it out. But it's a wonderful instrument, and I can imitate it on the snare drum, so I don't really need it, actually. So it sounds like this. Now, a lot of drummers, like I was saying, they can improvise a part or they can play a pattern, but they just play this on automatic. To me, it just doesn't sound that great. So what I do is I play the tambourine part on both sticks, and I improvise with it, like this. So what I was doing there, I had a momentary lapse there for a second, but what I was doing there at the end was I was playing an adaptation of the entire battery, the bateria on the drums. And it's very easy to do because all you have to do is know the traditional parts. For example, I was playing and that's the traditional surdo part. And to fill it in with the snare, I played 16ths. But I played flams in certain places so I can play the floor tom, and I wanted to keep the sound of the snare going. Now, once you start doing that, the left hand gets a little bit lazy and you get this certain feel. Okay. Now, you never know where you can use that. I mean, I've used that on certain jazz gigs. If we're playing a samba, like I subbed on a big band. I was sight reading the whole gig, and they said, oh, Mark's here, let's play a samba. So we played a samba, and then they just let me go. And so I started creating phrases from the bateria, something like this. Does anybody know where that's from? Anybody recognize that? You guys ever listen to Sergio Mendes? Oh yeah, it's from Brazil, all right. So check out a Sergio Mendes record called Brasileiro. Brasileiro. And you'll hear that exact sequence. So that's a little bit of Brazil. Now, I'm going to switch gears and go to another South American rhythm that I really like. And this is one of my favorite South American rhythms. I mean, I don't know if I can pick a favorite because I love them all. But are you all familiar with Alex Acuna? You guys know who Alex Acuna is? Played with Weather Report. One of the top session cats in LA as well. And amazing drummer and amazing percussionist. And he played on one of my favorite albums, Lyle Mays. Well, he's from Peru. And in Peru, they have certain rhythms that swing so hard that it's like impossible to notate. You can only just write them out in 12/8. So I want to turn you on to one of these. And it's called festejo, like festive, festejo. And I found a way of playing it. It's originally played on cajon, you know, the box, and cowbell. And there's a couple of really interesting instruments. One of the instruments that's played is called a cajita. It's a small box, and it was originally used for a collection in a church. So what they would do, they would open it up, somebody would throw a donation in, and they would close it. And when it closed, it made this really cool percussive sound. And after a while, they started grooving on it. So they played like a hard mallet on the lid, and it went it was a really interesting thing. And there are drummers that can adapt that to the set. And there's also congas and various scrapers like güiro. So I found a way. Now, when you listen to the music, you're gonna say to yourself, "Where's one?" Because it's going to be like that. But I found a way to play it that I really like, and it's got a very simple sticking to it. It's just right, right, left. That's it. Right, right, left. So what do you do with this? So what I do, and this really brings up being able to dial in the swing of something. This happens in old time, like old school rock and roll, for example. Somebody can play swing against the straight eights of the guitar, like Chuck Berry, you know. But this is really dialing in something interesting. And what it is, it's like a polyrhythm in a way. So it's just right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right. Now it sounds like that 16th note, ta 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 ta, right? But you can shape it so that it's almost like a triplet. It's in the cracks. And the nature of that music is that in the cracks kind of feeling to it. And that's why Alex Acuna sounds so amazing, because he's played all that music and he knows how to shape it like that. So when you hear him play, you hear something like that. I couldn't possibly transcribe that, you know? So here is the sticking. It's just right, 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 left. Check it out. So that's a little adaptation of a rockin' festejo. So that's a lot of fun to do, you know. But you know, once you learn how to do that, that opens up a lot of things. Like for example, I was playing a big band chart, and they wanted kind of a North African feeling to it, and I used that groove. I didn't say anything that it was from Peru, and they said, "Yeah, that sounds like Moroccan groove, like Gnawa music." So there's probably some relationship between. Like I know I heard a tune from Salif Keita called Wamba, and it sounds like festejo. So there's probably, and he's from Mali, so there's probably a connection there. There must be a connection there. Anyway, so that's another South American rhythm that I thought you'd dig. Now, let's talk about funk for a second. I find that, you know, less experienced people trying to play funk, it's a little tough for them because they don't really know how to play ghost notes. So I want to give you a little concept of that I kind of discovered over time. And there's a couple of different things you can do when you're playing a funk groove in the left hand that really would make a big difference. So let's say you want to go old school and you want to go back to James Brown, Funky Drummer, right? I'm going to play something close to Clyde Stubblefield. I'm waiting for James Brown to count 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So what was going on in the left hand there is really important if you want to play a lot of different funk type music, you know, whether it's pop or funk or whatever. So a couple of elements of that, what I was doing was, it was an accent and then followed by a tap. So you can see I'm just throwing my hand. I'm not playing both of those notes. I'm just playing one of the notes and letting the other rebound. Now, the opposite of that is when you're playing a tap followed by an accent. So that's probably a pickup into the backbeat. So you have to have kind of a fast hand, and there's technical exercises I could recommend to help you do that. Now, Funky Drummer is kind of a combination of both. Now, when we want to dial something in, when we want to dial the swing of it in, you could totally shape it into a different thing just by the distance between the notes using the same technique. So if I take Funky Drummer and I swing it a little bit more. And swing it even more. So I came up with this exercise. I haven't really coined a term for it yet. I guess I call it the spectrum. But what it is playing something very straight for one side of the spectrum and then going total swing to the other side. You can do this with pretty much any rhythm. You can do it with swing, straight hi-hat beat. So I'm going to do a straight beat. I'll do that same beat I was just playing. I'll do it really straight, and then I'll go completely to the other side, and I'll morph into it. So the purpose of this is to be able to dial that in for when you need it for a particular song, right? Okay, so here we go. So if you can hear that, if you can hear what works with a particular groove, that's gonna open you up to a lot of opportunities, because people will take notice, like, oh wow, that drummer can make it sound really swampy, you know, or drummer can dial it in just where everybody else is. And you know, it's one of those things like sometimes everybody's playing a slightly different thing, and it just the combination of the whole thing makes it what it is. But sometimes you can dial it into what the guitarist is playing, for example. Okay. So, yeah, the Morello. Morello's a huge influence. All right, so going to a little bit more in the rock funk fusion vein. Let's go into the fusion thing a little bit. And I want to just turn you on to a sticking that I really like. It's almost like you can create grooves with it. You can create solos with it. It's just amazing. And it's basically an inverted paradiddle. It's just right, left, right, right, left. So check it out. So I mean, mostly except for the end, I used the same sticking over and over, and that was it. So it's all about the emphasis. If I just play it like I played it at the beginning, it was just that, 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 that. You can't tell what's what. But if, like if you play that sticking, again, it's right, left, right, right, left. If you play the first and second right as an accent and then last left, check out what this does. The cool thing about this sticking is that you can use it in different contexts. So if I'm playing like an Afro-Cuban feeling, maybe songo. There I emphasize just the upbeats. If I want to play something more fusion-like, that's not really designated as any particular groove, just creating something. Sometimes I'll leave out the downbeats. I'm not sure what tune that would fit into, but I've used it for sure. Okay, now let's go to the other food group, a little bit of swing. I know I'm sort of going out of order, but that's okay. Now, swing feel. This is difficult for a lot of drummers because they don't really know how to balance the sound. A lot of people are used to hitting so hard on the snare and bass drum and playing so soft on the hat that sometimes when you ask them to play feathering, that's the quarter notes on the bass drum, is too loud. And when you ask them to play that softer, the cymbal gets softer. So they don't have that independence. So I think it's really crucial to be able to play in different ways when you're playing swing. So one basic way is to play a really strong ride cymbal, comping on the snare a little bit underneath that, bass drum supporting the bass, and then when you make an accent, you make it normal volume, like equal to the cymbal or the snare, and then hi-hat blending with the cymbal. So something like this. I'm just kind of improvising a blues, you know. You could probably hear it. But, so, you know, swing is all about blending with the acoustic ensemble. And that's what you have to keep in mind. You have to think about who you're playing with and how your sound blends with it, but also how your four limbs blend with each other. So that's like one of the biggest challenges. And also, the other thing is that with all this music, you have to play like you're speaking, like you're having a conversation. Everything I play when I play swing is conversational because everything else that's going on in the band is conversational. And if you're just playing on automatic, it's not going to work. Now, there are tunes where you're going to play more of a groove, like Frank Sinatra, for example. His drummers sometimes play this. And the reason is because Frank Sinatra was singing lyrics. So you're not going to start messing around underneath Frank Sinatra. You're going to play the groove, right? That makes sense? All right. Now, Lamar says, I love playing the songo rhythm. Yeah, now, I totally agree with that. I love that too. One of the things that, one of the biggest mistakes that American drummers make is that they try to play it like other American drummers. They don't check out changuito. If you guys haven't heard changuito, go check out, it's on YouTube now. Check out the video called The History of Songo. And Changuito was the drummer with Los Van Van. He died a couple of years ago, or most recently. And he was a virtuoso drummer, percussionist, timbale player. I mean, there were conga lessons that he was teaching Giovanni Hidalgo. Like, Giovanni is his protege, basically. So Changuito was an amazing drum set player and timbale player. He was with the band Los Van Van, Losvan, Check them out. Go to the early 70s stuff to hear Changuito playing trap set. And then sometime in the 80s, he switched to a timbale setup. So 2 timbales, a bass drum, floor tom, 2 bells, and a cymbal. And there's some incredible footage of his solos and his playing. It's just ridiculous. So Changuito is the guy. And there's actually a film clip of him teaching Dave Weckl how to play songo, which is pretty cool to see. So the cool thing about the history of songo is that you get exposed to what movements there were in the music. And there's a band playing with him on the tape. It's an old VHS tape. And when you hear the music, you can connect how it's supposed to sound. A lot of American drummers play songo like this. But to me, that's kind of like heavy and a little clumsy. Changuito played it like where you couldn't even predict what he was going to play. And he might have the bass drum on the and a 1. You know, so go check out Changuito. I mean, here's how I wound up playing it. Now you might notice the bass drum's a little different. Why? Because I'm thinking of a particular bass line. Now, if the bass line is not boom, bing, ging, 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 there's no reason you should play that on bass drum, right? So there should be no default pattern for songo. You should just listen to the bass player and support what they're doing. And the reason that was such a strong concept in Los Van Van is because the bass player, Juan Formel, was the leader. So a lot of the tunes were written by him, and they were based on the bass line. So there you go. That's a really important thing. And what happened, and the beautiful thing about songo is that it was influenced, and it influenced American funk. I got to meet and hang out with David Garibaldi, and he's one of the greatest living funk drummers, period. And he was really into Changuito, and it turns out that Changuito was listening to him as well. So they had a meeting of the minds, and it was like a cross-pollination. So it's a beautiful thing to see that, you know. So the link between funk and Afro-Cuban is right there, Garibaldi and Changuito. So check them out. All right, so that's a little bit of the 4 food groups. I mean, we can go all night with all the different grooves that, you know, are available. But let me plug back into the presentation here, and we'll continue from there. All right. Okay, so what are some of the reasons that people are deficient in Afro-Latin rhythms and jazz, you think? Maybe you felt this way before. I mean, maybe there's too much coordination to practice, or you didn't have a career opportunity where you were going to play that style or genre. Well, other people thought that too, but wouldn't you agree if all you had to do was practice these different rhythms and listen first of all, you'd have a great time learning the music. And even if you weren't going to perform this style, it would allow you to make big improvements in the other styles because of those little adjustments you can make in the groove, those ways of dialing things in. Does that make sense to everybody? Give me a 10 in the chat if that makes sense. Cool. All right. So now we're on secret number 2. How to rewire your brain to gain maximum confidence in your performance. So my first attempt at playing an Afro-Cuban mambo was a complete disaster. I remember the venue, I remember what year it was, and I remember who I was playing with. And I was so embarrassed after the gig, I vowed I would never let that happen again. And, you know, I just didn't know any better. I was playing a samba underneath an Afro-Cuban mambo. It just wasn't happening. But I discovered that I could solve the problem by where my attention was focused. So I created these 3 steps to mastering any pattern you'll ever have to coordinate. And when you have a good sense of coordination, then you feel more confident. You feel like you can execute something a little better. You feel like you can really get your ideas across. But if you're worried about how to coordinate something, it's like a house of cards. It just falls apart. See what I mean? So let's take an Afro-Cuban shell pattern. Let's take that cascada that we were talking about a little while ago, for example. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the clave with it. And the idea is when you have something complicated like that and you're adding something with less notes, that probably works better than just playing the clave and trying to add the cascada on top of that. See what I mean? So what we're going to do is I'm going to play the cascada rhythm and I'm going to add one clave note at a time. And I'm just going to play it a couple of times and then I'm going to add the next note and the next note and the next note. And this can go for any type of music, any type of groove. Just pick the part that's constant and part that's busiest and add the simpler parts. You could do this with swing, like snare phrasing, stuff like that. Dang, 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 start playing syncopations. But let's concentrate on the cascada. So I'm going to play the cascada and I'm going to set it up with a foot pattern and then I'm going to play the first note of the clave. And I'm going to do this in 3-2 clave. So sorry, this is 3-2 clave. Okay, so the point of this was to keep your attention on the cascada. Because if that changes, then it completely destroys the whole point of the exercise, right? So what we do is we keep our mind on the first thing, and as we're adding the second thing, we keep our mind on the first thing, and then it doesn't change the first thing. Make sense? Okay. So you can do that with any type of coordination, anything that you're coordinating, left foot clave or a complicated funk pattern or whatever. Just take it slow. I took it fast just to get through it faster because I know we're short on time. Okay, cool. So that's the power of secret number 2. Now, secret number 3 is how to become the drummer you want to be while living the rest of your life. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there's some people that practice 8 hours a day, but I don't think you have to make significant progress. I'm preparing for a gig with Michelle Camilo Big Band, and the set's about an hour, and I'm running that every day for about an hour. So I do a warm-up, and then I work on that, or I'm working on some music for another gig. And I don't think you have to go crazy. If you have 2 hours, go for it. Nothing wrong with that. But here's what really helped me out. So you might be thinking, I've already got so much going on. How am I supposed to find time to practice? So with my traveling gigs, teaching, writing, raising a family, etc., I was very confused about how to practice, and I wasn't progressing, and I needed help. So I looked at how successful people organized all the things they had to do, and I had an epiphany. So I discovered how to plan and organize my practice time into categories, starting with listening. Now, listening, you can do anywhere. You can do in your car. So I do a lot of listening in my car, and I think that's really important. You don't have to be sitting at a drum set to check out new music, right? Now, maintenance. That doesn't take very long if you know what to practice. And what I usually do is a technical practice of singles, doubles, paradiddles, accents and rebounds, and then I move on to some other practices throughout the week. I might work on some molar or finger technique or etudes or whatever. Coordination. Yes, that's another thing that's important. Learning new pieces. And you can do that on and off the kit as well. But to go through the physical motion of playing it, I think it's best to be on a kit. But if you can't, you can always pretend you're playing drums. You can try to picture yourself playing in your head. And that's something I learned from Michel Camilo. I was on a gig with him in Martinique, of all places, and we were playing, and Anthony Jackson was on bass. Can you believe it? So the three of us are playing a sound check, and we're rehearsing St. Thomas, the old standard, Sonny Rollins. And Michel played like a single note solo for a chorus, and then Anthony Jackson came in with half notes for the next chorus. Then I would come in with a soft calypso type of groove. And it always took me a few bars to get settled. And Michel said something to me that really had a huge impact. He said, Mark, why don't you imagine yourself playing before you start playing? So I said, you mean just imagine myself playing the part before I come in? He said, yeah. And I tried it, and it works. It works like a charm. So try this on your next gig. Like before you come in, or even before you count, think about actually playing the groove in your head, and don't make a sound, and then either count it off or just come right in. And I guarantee you, it's going to blow your freaking mind how on it you're going to sound. Okay, composition. I worked with people that are so great at composition that it made me study composition just to become a better musician myself. Three people I can think of: Paquito de Rivera, Lyle Mays, pianist, and Ralph Towner, who I worked with in the band Oregon for 23 years. They're composers. They're just amazing. So I asked Ralph one time, how can I improve my solo on your tune? It was called Aeolus, and I played a solo in it. And he said, play the composition. That's all he said. I'm like, wow, okay. I got to contemplate that one. But if you think like a composer, think like an arranger, it's going to really make you think about the parts you're playing, and it's really going to help you refine them. Because if you really think about the composition, where it's going, what does this need? What kind of transition does this need? Do I need to play a fill here, or is there no transition? When should I play that fill? You start to figure that stuff out when you think about composition. And of course, you can listen to it away from the drums. Improvisation. I haven't talked much about soloing tonight, but if you check out these different food groups, these different traditions, you're going to hear solos that are specific to certain styles. And when you learn that, you're going to learn a lot about improvisation, and you'll see common things that'll overlap in different styles, as well as things that make it unique for its own style. Like, for example, if you hear a drum in samba, in the battery called the hipaniki, it sounds like a timbale. It's got a certain type of phrasing to it, which is really cool. And you can cop that, and you can start to improvise with it on the drum set. It's really fun. All right, chart interpretation. There's another one. If you know how to, well, the first thing to think about is when you're interpreting a chart, what does the ensemble need? If you're playing with a big band, most likely they want to sound good as a section, and they want to sound good as a whole band. So our job is to keep it together and make them feel comfortable. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to play a really fast, flashy fill, but all they need is one note. But if you can play that fill in the right place and give them that note, then they'll come in as a section in the right place at the right time. And that's what that is all about. So chart interpretation, when you see figures on a chart, that tells you what the band is playing. Sometimes it's, if it's written under the staff, it's what the low end of the band is playing, like trombones, bari sax, bass, left-hand piano. It tells you that information. So if you know how to make them feel comfortable, which means sometimes just playing one note to set it up, that's what you play. So we can get into that later. All right, styles. We talked about styles a bit. 4 foot groups. Double bass. That's not required, but it's fun to practice, and I've been learning quite a bit of it. So the thing to remember with double bass, and all the great double bass players that play other types of music will tell you, that you shouldn't play it too hard. You should just relax on it. So that's the short instruction. Okay, so what I did was plan and organize my practice time. And I put the practice time down, like, actually right after this webinar, I'm going to be organizing my practice for the week. So I'm going to book it as an appointment, and nothing's going to get in the way. I find that for me, when I practice in the morning, I can get more done. So, and what I did, I got this idea from Henrique de Almeida. I started timing myself with this stopwatch. I actually have the same stopwatch. And it's really interesting what happens when you do that, because it helps you focus. It helps you focus, and you know that you only got a certain amount of time to do what you have to do, so you don't get distracted. So, and I was really amazed at the amount of things you could practice in a short amount of time. Yes, it took longer to learn something brand new, but timing the process was really helpful because I spent less time on the same practice and was more focused. So I highly recommend using that and keeping your phone on airplane mode. Now I never wonder what to practice, because when you plan in advance and keep track of your practice, and you have a balanced practice of 4 foot groups and some technical exercise, then you have pretty much all you need covered for whatever you need. So it helps you track your progress, move toward your goals, make gains in speed and tempo if that's the objective, avoid wasting time, and you can organize your entire day and potentially reach non-musical goals as well. And it's an investment in yourself. And you develop the discipline it takes to be a great musician. All right, you getting some value from these secrets? Give me a 10 in the chat. Excellent. Okay, so here's what we've covered. Secret number 1, why most drummers sound one-dimensional and what to do about it. Secret number 2, how to rewire your brain to gain maximum confidence in your performance. And secret number 3, how to become the drummer you want to be while living the rest of your life. Now you know how to unlock your potential as a drummer, and you've discovered how you can develop your focus, meaning confidence and independence. I've also shown you how anyone can make amazing progress just by measuring it every day. So let me ask you a question. Are you enjoying this so far? All right. Was our time together thus far enjoyable to you? Do you feel you're more comfortable on how to advance your drumming more now than before you joined this webinar? Have you come up with some ideas that you already feel excited about implementing into your own life? Yeah. Is it fair to say that using these techniques would give you a significant advantage over other people that would like to level up? Not that it's a competition. Yeah, discipline is what we need. Are you happy you watched this webinar today? I appreciate you guys being here. So you can take what I shared with you today and you can use that to change your life for the better. I have total confidence that even after our time here together, you now understand a way to help you reach your drumming goals that you previously didn't think about before. And if that were the only option, it would be a worthy ideal to pursue. But what if there were another way, an option that allowed me to serve you at the highest level, a chance to go more in depth together than we can in just one short webinar, connecting just once? What if I had more of a responsibility to your success, more of an obligation to help you get the results that you desire and also that I believe you deserve? If I had such an option for you, would you like to hear more about it and what it could do for you? Now, remember our deal. Was this a really good presentation? Because if it wasn't, don't respond. Otherwise, you can give me a 5 in the chat. Okay, cool. So that's good. I'm glad you guys got something out of this. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce you to the World Jazz Drumming Experience. What this is a year-long comprehensive mentorship program with a community, pre-recorded trainings, and collaboration coaching calls 3 times a week. And the concepts and methods I've shown you hardly even scratch the surface. So let's talk about who this is for. It's for those that are ready to make a change in their playing and their lives, for those who are willing to commit to their growth, and for those who are not satisfied with their playing, and for those who would enjoy being part of a community of like-minded drummers moving toward the common goal. So this is not for those who think they have arrived, or those who are afraid to get out of their comfort zone, or those who haven't played drums, and it's not for dabblers. So for the next few days, I'm doing a limited amount of free 45-minute strategy sessions to see if this program is a good fit for you. And you can book a call at this link. It's expandmydrumming.com/application. I'll put this in the chat so you remember it. You can copy it. And on the call, we do an evaluation to see a few things. So can we make your practice work for you to reach your goals? And what are the actual problems holding you back? That's really important. And is my program a good fit to solve those problems? And are you a good fit for the program? I need positive people who are really sincere about learning music. I don't work with negative people. Then and only then, I would show you what the World Jazz Drumming Experience looks like and see if you want to be a part of the community. So if this sounds like you and you want to skyrocket your drumming with expert guidance over the next 3 days, I've set aside some time to talk to you and see if I can help. So you got the link down there. Let's see who is the first one to book a call. So the World Jazz Drumming Experience is all about a community of positive musicians all moving toward a common goal. Live group coaching so you can get the mentorship and feedback you need. And I don't just show up once a month, but I show up at least a couple of times a week. And you can also hit me up by private message if you need feedback on something. So basically, it's a 24/7 access to me. And I've got cutting edge trainings so you can work at your own pace, yet have accountability. That's really important. Here's a few messages from members of the World Jazz Drumming Experience. John is a sound engineer from Massachusetts, and he was having trouble with the concentration and effective practice, and he says that's grown immensely. And so how's your experience in this program?
I just wanted to thank you because it's a life-changing, situation. I mean, it's not only about playing; it's about changing a lot of habits and about looking at things in life. It's great. I mean, you can transfer that to many things in life. And something that my wife told me that she's noticed that after I play something or after a gig, before I was like, oh man, it was awful. All the time I was like defeating myself. But she notices that then after every gig, then I want to practice and look at the things in the easier way. Those are changes that people notice in like integral things in your profession as a person. They feel that from you.
Right, like an energy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Carlos is one of my top students. He's the head of a music department in an arts school in Guayaquil, Ecuador. And he recently brought me down there, and I did a couple of clinics and concerts, and we recorded together. So that was really nice, it really became full circle. And he sat in on my gig and it sounded great. Here's another student of mine.
Hi, my name is Jim Hoyt, and I joined the World Jazz Drum Experience with Mark Walker back in September of 25. I just retired from my career. I've been drumming since I was in elementary school and wanted to learn more and wanted to dive deeper into Afro-Cuban rhythms. So one of the beauties of the program is that Mark meets you just where you are. And my beginning prescription was to work on my hands, work with rudiments, Gary Chafee stickings, and then eventually through a lot of repetition, incorporating those around the drum kit, working with purposeful practice time so that each practice, as often as we can make the time, we have a very specific style of practicing. And you map it out and you stick to it. Now, we record our progress weekly. We submit videos to Mark, and he'll comment, make recommendations, and in fact, everyone in the program gets a chance to comment, and it's real encouragement back and forth amongst all the people in the program. Now, I can feel the difference in my time, my independence, my chart reading for sure, accompanied by compliments from bandmates, which feels pretty good. The learning journey is still young, but I would highly recommend you working with Mark, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks.
And Jim plays in a band that's like a Chicago cover band. So they play all Chicago music from the band Chicago. Now you have a choice. You can do one of two things. You can do this on your own, hopefully do it right, conquer every roadblock as it comes, figure out every hiccup, or you can have me by your side and make sure you're doing it right, blast through those roadblocks like a rocket, and accelerate your success faster than you ever could on your own. And believe me, I know this works because I study too. So you can let me help you as someone who's developed the 4 food groups framework for over 4 decades in a professional career. And this system is what's transformed my drumming and is now transforming others. So if all this did was allow you to improve the styles you want to play, would it be worth it? If all this did was to help you coordinate any rhythms, would it be worth it? If all this did was allow you to sound more authentic, would it be worth it? And if all this did was allow you to develop a stronger foundation and more extensive vocabulary, would that be worth it? So your results will come faster than you think. Juan Ali was already an accomplished jazz player, but was struggling with different rhythms from South America and the Caribbean, believe it or not, even though he's from Mexico. He said, Mark helped me so much in becoming more confident playing various styles from various countries with authenticity. We worked on festejo, that's the rhythm that I played you, tango, chacarera, candombe, Brazilian rhythms, to name a few. He made me realize that playing rhythms with a great feel is the major job of a drummer in any ensemble. All right, for those who stuck around, here is a free guide to getting a killer sound on the drum set. So it's a drummer's sound guide. So I'm going to type in the URL. You can pick that up. So let's see, expand my drumming.com/gift. There you go. That's for you. And I think that's very valuable because when people notice your sound, that helps you get the gig. All right, let's hear from Ari Honig, one of my favorite jazz drummers.
Hey, you guys, I'm Ari Honig. I want to talk to you a little bit about Mark Walker. Mark is one of the premier player teachers in the world. I'm even honored to do this video, honestly. It's difficult to find somebody who's a great player and a great teacher, and Mark really fits that bill. I went to him originally to learn Cuban styles, really specifically, and he gave me that. He gave me what I wanted, and he also kind of hit me to a bunch of other things that really helped me. Mark teaches in a really musical way, kind of as opposed to a drumistic way, which is also just exactly what I needed. And so I felt like he really listened to me and figured out what I wanted and gave it to me. I understand you might have the opportunity to study with Mark. What can I say? I'm jealous. Good luck.
Now, Ari Honig, I mean, you don't really hear him play much Afro-Cuban stuff, but yet he wanted to study it. So that shows you that he really wants all that information, and he'll put what he needs, what spices he needs into that mix that he plays. And he's one of the baddest dudes around. Okay, the World Jazz Drumming Experience. Here's the phases of the program. We do, like I said, it's a year program, and we do one phase in each of the 4 food groups. Brazilian, South American to start, Afro-Cuban, Caribbean, jazz, and everything with a backbeat. And how I approach each genre, we explore the origins of it. So for example, in Afro-Cuban rhythms, we know the difference between son, salsa, mambo, and Latin jazz and Afro-Cuban jazz. We do listening. There are listening assignments. We talk about the feel, which is the pulse and the subdivision. We talk about the phrasing, the orchestration, and the solo vocabulary. So that's how we approach each of those food groups. And then we see how they cross-pollinate. So it's my mission to help 50 drummers see measurable results with their technique, coordination, reading styles, soloing, and advanced techniques by the end of this year. Who's with me? All right, Roger. Yeah, man. Way to go. Yes, I'll see you on July 6th. Yeah. Great. So what I do is help students get results, and I share those results. And I show them effective methods from the beginning so they don't have to mess around and try to guess what they should do. So one of the main differences between this and studying privately is that you get to see me anytime you want, as opposed to coming in for a lesson and then not seeing me for a couple of weeks. See, that's the difference between a mentorship program and just a private lesson. Jerome, did you have a question? I know you had your hand raised. You can type in the chat if you have a question. Okay. Cool. So yeah, what I do is I figure out with the student what are their biggest struggles, and then we craft a custom plan for each student to get them there using this information from the 4 food groups, plus technical practices, and we really take care of a lot of people, and they're really getting a lot out of this program. So go ahead, book a call, and we can talk about whatever it is you're struggling with, and we'll see how we can map out a custom plan for you, a custom solution. All right, yeah, that's the spirit. Let's go. Let's practice. So here's the URL. I'm going to close it down for tonight. But I want to thank everybody for coming. It's great to see you all. And any questions before we go? Do you go over finding work? Well, I could. I could talk about how I do it, how I did it. Sure. That'd be another webinar, I guess. All right. Looking forward to seeing you guys on a call. I'll close it down for tonight. Have a great night. Hope you got something out of this. And let's keep in touch. Okay. Is it 45 minutes? Yes. That is the strategy call. That's mapping out the solution. I'll paste the URL one more time. You can pick that up. Just go ahead and click it, and you'll be connected right away. Great. See you all very soon. Thank you so much. Signing off.